Why do we speak English the way we do? Why is English such a widespread language and such an important language today? Why do we speak English at all? If you're asking these questions, you've come to the right place.
In this video, we will be showing you about the history of English and how it diffused.
What's diffusion, you ask? Well, diffusion is the spread of something from one place to another over time. But to talk English diffusion, we first need to discuss the history.
It all started when ships moved on to the British Isles through a land bridge. Because of the isolation, which usually keep a language from changing and being influenced from outside sources and stay the same for hundreds of years.
Well, you might ask, what language did the Celts speak? Well, the Celts spoke a language known as Kentum, which derived from Proto-Indo-European. What's that, you ask? Proto-Indo-European is the theoretical first language from which all other languages in the Indo-European family derive from.
The Indo-European family has the most spoken languages. It has over 2.5 billion speakers. Getting back to Kentum, it is the origin of the Germanic branch, which spawned 3 new groups.
From West Germanic came different variations of English, but we'll get to that later.
Let's head back into history, shall we? In 450 AD, 3 Germanic tribes known as the Angles, Saxons, and the Jutes all settled in different parts of England. These 3 tribes spoke a language that we now know as Old English, which derived from the West Germanic group.
The influence of the German tribes gave us simple words like man and sky.
And then the French, also known as the Normans, invaded in 1066, and French was made the official language. Although those of wealth and power spoke French, the majority of the population, the middle and lower classes, still spoke English.
The French controlled England for 300 years, but the England took it back. Although the majority of the population did not speak French, it left a huge influence on the language. We received new French words, and the language also became smoother and less guttural, like how Germans would speak it. This language was what we now know as Middle English.
Because of this, we got bigger and fancier words from the French of celestial and equestrian.
Okay, now that we've talked about the history, let's get into diffusion. When English colonized North America, they did it through relocation diffusion, which is the physical movement of a group of people from one place to another.
English first diffused west from England to North America in the 17th century. The first successful colonies were built along the Atlantic coast. There were also some influences from Native American languages.
So let's talk about the diffusion within America for a minute. There were three sort dialects: the Northern dialect, who mainly colonized from Middle and Southeastern England.
Their dialect was the most refined, related to how the British spoke it. The dialect is diffused along the Bowash and New England areas. The Mid-Atlantic dialect was diffused along states of North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, and went eastward. The Southern dialect, which were mainly made of fugitives, refugees, and prisoners, were diffused in the South. Because of this, the speakers of the Southern dialect were less educated, hence why the South is sometimes received as uneducated. English was also fighting for dominance in the West against the French. They defeated the French, solidifying English as a principal language in North America.
Alright, let's go back to Europe and the diffusion into Asia and Africa. The British took control of South Asia. Because of this, countries like India and Pakistan have English as an official language.
They also took control of the South Pacific in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, diffusing English throughout most of Asia. Eventually, they colonized Africa in the late 19th century, diffusing English throughout most of Africa. In both of these scenarios, English became an official language.
While all this is happening, the heart was slowly shifting toward the United States because of the Industrial Revolution and the shift of the demographic transition.
By the early 20th century, during the time of World War I, the English heart changed to America due to its economic superiority and leadership.
Because of the change in hearts, the diffusion types changed as well. As we became more technologically advanced, the change in hearts also allowed English to diffuse to new places where it could not before.
Because of things like the internet and globalization, which is the influence of larger organizations on other countries, English spread much more quickly through expansion diffusion.
Another reason why English diffuses so well is because of the way it can easily adapt to other languages, and because of the way vocab, spelling, and pronunciation can be changed. Because of this, we get hybrid languages known as creoles, such as Spanglish, Franglish, and Danglish.
Looking back at the internet, because it was initially written in English only, people were forced to learn English to use the internet, which contributed to international diffusion without any physical work being done. This kind of diffusion is known as contagious expansion diffusion, which is the rapid, widespread diffusion of something.
I understand that was a whole lot of information, so let's give a quick recap.
First the Celts, then the Anglo-Saxons, then the French, all three of them changing the language.
English began to diffuse internationally through relocation diffusion by colonization of America and Asia. Then the heart switched over to America during the early 20th century because of economic superiority and leadership.
America becomes a superpower and becomes technologically advanced, initiating the creation of the internet, diffusing English through contagious expansion diffusion. Globalization also comes to play and spreads it even faster.
After all of this, English is one of the most widely spoken languages today because of the events that inspired it.